Yeah, it's great to be in the Shoalhaven with boots on the ground, helping out where we're needed and assisting the local emergency services and the local population.
Tonight, an update on the bushfires and recovery efforts in Australia.
There was over a dozen riders that just came to support, and it was just beautiful to see how you'd go to one community and then you'd see a whole bunch of people come and support.
And a new documentary tracks a long horseback ride that connected communities from Wahpeton to Wood Mountain Lakota Nation. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. We begin in Australia, where the raging bushfires continue to have the country in panic mode. As Shawnee Wellington of National Indigenous Television reports, the fires are also having quite an impact in the political arena.
There was a sombre break from the front line for some today to celebrate the life of Andrew O'Dwyer. Mr O'Dwyer was tragically killed last month along with fellow member Jeff Keaton while fighting the Green Wattle Creek fire to the southwest of Sydney. Rural Fire Service Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons choked up as he addressed Mr O'Dwyer's young daughter Charlotte. He told mourners that Charlotte should know her father was a selfless and special man who only left because he was a hero. Prime Minister Scott Morrison, State Premier Gladys Berejiklian and State Emergency Services Minister David Elliott were all in attendance. Meanwhile, on the South Coast, recovery efforts continued.
Yeah, it's great to be in the Shoalhaven with boots on the ground, helping out where we're needed and assisting the local emergency services and the local population.
The costs of the clean-up are predicted to climb. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg meeting with major insurance agencies to discuss the numbers.
There's around 8,500 insurance claims, totalling around $700 million in losses that have already been made. Around 20% of those claims have already been assessed.
The state of the country continues to make international headlines. Liberal MP Craig Kelly is now at the centre of controversy for his stance on climate change.
Mr Kelly, with respect, a senior politician who still doesn't think this has anything to do with a heating up planet, nothing to see here, nothing to worry about, as virtually your entire country is eviscerated by fires. It is quite extraordinary.
This is a terrible disaster. This is one of our nation's worst natural disasters.
The exchange was quickly dismissed by the Minister for Emergency Management.
You know what? I couldn't give a rat's what he said. It's irrelevant. Let's just focus on those people that are out there that need our help. That's what we should be focused on as a nation. These titbits on the sidelines, couldn't care less about.
There could be a lot to focus on. There's fears a blaze at Corryong in Victoria's northeast will merge with fires in southern New South Wales in the coming days. Less than 10 kilometres of land currently separates the two fires. Despite some easing conditions, authorities have warned there's no room for complacency, with weather expected to worsen. Shawnee Wellington, NITV News.
Indigenous Canadians are less likely to survive a cancer diagnosis than non-Indigenous Canadians. Now, the University of British Columbia and the First Nations Health Authority have teamed up to try to improve cancer outcomes. APTN's Tina House has that story.
And with the passing of this wooden paddle, Dr. Nadine Caron has become the founding First Nations Health Authority Chair in Cancer and Wellness at the University of British Columbia.
Please, please. Give me guidance, give me strength, give me advice, and give me a voice so that we can work together for what this chair is supposed to ultimately accomplish.
Dr. Nadine Caron is the first First Nations female general surgeon in Canada. She currently resides in Prince George, BC, and provides surgical oncology care to rural populations in British Columbia. And many here agree that she is the right woman for the job.
We've lost too many loved ones to cancer, too many of our elders, too many of our women, our men. So we've waited a long time for you to come so that we can join hands with you and work with you so that we have healthier families and communities.
A recent study from the FNHA has shown that cancers such as colorectal and cervical are significantly higher among First Nations in BC, along with a lowered survival rate compared to non-Indigenous people.
First Nations, Métis people were able to voice some of the experiences and barriers to the care that they received as a result of cancer and some of their experiences. And really that really led us to develop an Indigenous cancer strategy.
Over the next 5 years, Dr. Caron and her team will adopt a holistic approach in the prevention and treatment among Indigenous peoples across the province through a $1.5 million grant from the First Nations Health Authority and a matching contribution from UBC. The newly formed position will also examine experiences and outcomes of Indigenous cancer patients and see how the healthcare system is responding to those Indigenous cancer needs.
Cancer is a diagnosis. You see it under a microscope. Wellness is a journey, and they are interrelated, but I think it's important that this type of research and this type of focus and these voices for First Nations are being brought to the forefront, and this was asked for by the communities.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A crime wave in Winnipeg is getting part of the blame for a big jump in the number of people feeling unsafe.
Way less safe. Like, I can tell you lots of stories about my family. Like,
with all these people doing the bad drugs, it's not safe.
A survey for the Winnipeg Police Union shows that 72% of people say they feel less safe compared to how they felt a year earlier. That's up from 56% of people in June who said they feel safe. Almost half of says that the city isn't spending enough on policing. The ongoing meth crisis and a record 44 homicides in 2019 are among the factors driving the rising safety concerns. How would you spend $70 million? That's how much is up for grabs tonight in the largest lottery jackpot in Canadian history. Not only that, another 25 $1 million prizes could also be won tonight. It's the second consecutive draw for the massive $70 million prize after no one won it in last Friday's draw. Retailers report ticket sales are surging. We want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. A Mohawk artist's digital display is going to be seen by Royal Eyes. We'll explain after the break, but first here's a look at tomorrow's weather forecast in eastern Canada. We've got -5 and snow in Fredericton, 1 and sleet in St. John's. -22 and snow in Kuujjuaq, -23 and sunny in Inukjuak. Saguenay, -7 and snow. Montreal, 0 and snow. North Bay, -9 and snowing. -10 and sunshine in Sault Ste. Marie. -18 and sunny in Sioux Lookout. -14 and sunshine in Thunder Bay. -22 and sunny for Thompson. -25 and sunny in Puckatawagan. -17 and snow for Dauphin, -12 and snow in Brandon. -12 and snow in Saskatoon, -4 and snow in Swift Current. -20 and snow for Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge, clear skies, and -29 in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. In their first royal engagement of 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will be visiting the Canada Gallery in London, where the work of digital artist Skawanati is from Ganawagi Mohawk territory in Quebec is on display as part of an expansive show called Avatars, Aliens, Ancestors. She joins us now from Montreal. So this is all very exciting. For the uninitiated, can you explain how this collection of work came to be?
Yes. This collection of work came to be because Christine Redfern, who is a curator at the Gallery Elephant, put it together. And it consists of some machinima, which are movies that I make in virtual spaces like video games. And the movies are about Haudenosaunee culture. So for example, I have a movie called She Falls for Ages. It's 20 minutes long, and it's a sci-fi retelling of the Haudenosaunee creation story. I also have another piece called Generations of Play, which has a cornhusk doll, a Barbie doll, and a printout of my avatar, all wearing my avatar's outfit. So yeah, they came together because I'm very interested in showing Indigenous people in the future.
So, and how do you say that the Duke and Duchess and just even the general public, how are they supposed to interact with the work that's in Aliens, Avatars, and Ancestors?
Mm-hmm. Well, they're supposed to look at it, you know, watch it, listen to it, and think about it. What I'm hoping that they'll get out of it is that, you know, not only do Indigenous people exist, and my understanding is that in the UK, a lot of people think that maybe we're not around anymore. But not only are we around, but we plan to be around for a very long time, and that we're envisioning ourselves in the future. And that despite despite colonization and attempts at genocide, we are still working towards revitalizing our culture. We survived, and we're on our way to thriving.
What is it about cyberpunk or the digital universe that compels you as an artist?
I think it's an incredible place. It's almost limitless. Mm-hmm. It allows us to imagine our futures in a futuristic medium. Also, the thing about cyberspace is it was a new medium that started happening at the same time that Indigenous people had access to it. So with now we have APTN, we have TV cameras, and we know how to use them, and we know how to write in, you know, this language. But before we, you know, people had cameras and we didn't, and they took pictures of us and told their stories about us and made stereotypes about us. Cyberspace was a whole new medium that we could get in on at the same time as everybody else.
I love that. So in addition to all of this, you are 2019's Indigenous Knowledge Keeper at McGill University. I'm curious, what have you learned through this experience of exhibiting overseas? How has that added to your knowledge base?
I think before I exhibited over there, I had this idea that there wasn't a big reason for an Indigenous artist to show in there, that my audience is here, that the people who would get my work the best would be here. But what I'm realizing is that there's a lot to say. You know, the world is shrinking, has shrunk. There's a lot to say to everyone in the world. But over there, especially the seat of empire, there's a lot to think about and to talk about. And there's a dialogue that can happen that I didn't realize I needed to be there to have that conversation.
This is exciting. I'm so congratulations on this. Happy for you, and I hope it goes amazingly well. Lots of success for you.
Thank you so much.
Master carver Kerry Newman is most recognized for his work on the Witness Blanket, a national monument made of hundreds of items collected from residential schools. Tonight, on a new episode of Face to Face, right after the news, Newman sits down with Dennis Ward to talk about a documentary and book on the artist's journey. Here's a sneak peek.
The blanket can only be in one place, right? But the book or the documentary can be in many places, and they can tell the story in different ways that reach people in different ways. So, I mean, the documentary brings those words of survivors to life, and you get to walk through residential school sites and really see and feel the emotion of that process in a different way. And when it comes to the book, you can go deeper into the stories.
We need to take another quick break, but there's still much more ahead. And here's tomorrow's weather forecast in the west and the north. To northern Alberta, we've got -20 and snow in Peace River, -27 and clear in Fort Chip, -10 and snow for Edmonton, -5 and sunny in Lethbridge, 4 and rain for Penticton and Kamloops, -6 and snow in Quesnel, -29 and snow in Fort Nelson, -9 and sunshine for Smithers. -45 and clear in Dawson City, -39 and clear in Mayo, -33 and snow in Norman Wells, -30 in Fort Simpson, snowy, -26 in Inuvik with snow, -31 and sunshine for Colville Lake, -27 in Cambridge Bay, clear skies, -30 and clear in Repulse Bay, -30 and clear for Arctic Bay, -29 and clear in Igloolik, and -30 and clear in Horseback. A powerful film about reconnecting First Nations youth with their families is making its way to screens across Canada. Elena McDougall has the story.
There's many children that are wondering, like, who am I?
A new documentary hopes prayer and dialogue will help displaced children and adults find their way back to family and community.
The horses will always find its way home. And just like this ride, we're creating awareness for our children to find their way home. And I think that when we use these horses to pray, I honestly think that these children, some way, somehow, wherever their home is, that they'll find their way home.
The Long Ride Home documents a 600-kilometer journey by horseback that connected communities from Wahpeton to Wood Mountain Lakota Nation last summer. Director Steve Hanning was asked to film the journey after developing a relationship with Neil Sioux and workers at Cubo, an organization that helps First Nations youth.
There was like over a dozen riders that just came to support, and it was just beautiful to see like how you'd go to one community and then you'd see a whole bunch of people come and support and go for as long as they could on the ride, and even if they couldn't do the whole ride, they were just like, we're here for you, we'll be here to support you. It's just a beautiful thing.
In 12 days, the ride visited 6 communities where people gathered in song and ceremony to pray for those who have been displaced. Organizer Neil Sioux hopes the message will help people reconnect with home and culture.
To actually take that chance and to try look for her family and to try look for acceptance, and I kind of think that that's what this documentary does, is it provides encouragement for people in that situation to reach out, because these people in their community, they probably never heard, or they don't know, or there's like nothing, right? So I'm kind of hoping that these stories will affect people in that way to search for their families, to find out a lot about their history, to find out about their culture, to find out about like how beautiful it is and how powerful it is.
The film will be screened at 40 festivals this year. Presently, it is being shown in Saskatchewan among the communities that engaged with the ride.
I think that where the ride was addressing some very serious things, and people were talking about some of the hardest things in their life, and in the film you kind of learn a couple of those stories very well. But I think that because everybody could relate to each other and go, okay, this is where our starting point is, this is where we are, and regardless of what's happened in life, this is where we are, and this is why we are where we are. But we're all here together.
A longer ceremonial ride is planned to travel between Wood Mountain and Wahpeton, Saskatchewan this August. For information, follow Bring Home the Children Ride and The Long Ride Home on Facebook.
Canadian Tire is facing an allegation of racial profiling. An Indigenous man claims that he was exchanging an auto part when he was accused of fraud by security. He says he was unjustly kicked out of the store. And we've got this story from CTV's Creason Ajikude.
I honestly felt like singled out. I felt like picked on.
Matthew Bird thought a recent trip to Canadian Tire would just be like any other trip to the store, but this one ended in Bird being accused of stealing.
You can leave and leave all your stuff and we won't call the cops.
Last Sunday at around 1:30 p.m., Bird went to this Canadian Tire in Regina's South End to exchange a family member's headlights and brake lights. He walked in with both items in his hands and the receipt and proceeded to the headlight aisle to find the correct lights. He then went to the customer service desk with the lights he wanted to exchange and the correct brake lights. That is when a plainclothes security officer approached Bird.
He came to me and said, I couldn't do that. I was like, why? He's like, because I seen you pull a big bunch of stuff off the shelf. I was like, no. I was like, I didn't. And you didn't walk in here with anything in your hands. I was like, yeah, I did. I should be on camera.
Bird says the staff then asked him to come to the back of the store with security, and he declined.
Honestly, it felt like it had to do with racial. I was alone.
Staff then took away the items and his receipt, and Bird was asked to leave or the police would be called. One of the reasons Bird is speaking out about this is because he says that he is used to being followed by people in stores, and he doesn't want this same ordeal to happen to other customers. In a statement to CTV News, Canadian Tire says the third-party loss prevention officer at the Canadian Tire store at Southland Mall incorrectly assessed the actions of the customer. He did not realize that the customer was attempting to return an item that was previously purchased. By the time the store's general manager and the LPO reviewed the security footage and realized the error, the customer had already left the store. Bird came back the following day and staff apologized to him, and he did get his items and receipt back. He still questions why he was targeted and now wants Canadian Tire to develop training for all employees that will focus on how to serve customers of all backgrounds. Krisanashkate, CTV News, Regina.
Red Snow is a film that follows the journey of a Gwich'in soldier caught in an ambush in Afghanistan. It's a story about courage and cultural connections. Red Snow just premiered in the Yukon, and APTN's Chris McIntyre spoke with a few of the actors about how they found their own connections through the film.
You are on my land, protecting your country. Who's the crazy one now?
The award-winning film Red Snow, directed by Marie Clements and shot in the Okanagan and the Northwest Territories, recently came to the Yukon.
This nation's Canadian.
Asavak Kustachin is of Gwich'in, Inuit, and Cree heritage and played the Gwich'in soldier Dylan in the film. Kustachin said working with his castmates, he found a resilience between both the Afghan and the Gwich'in people.
Doing the project and sharing our feelings on certain things that different scenes brought up, definitely there was a similarity of resilience and survival and strength in one's culture and using that to kind of carry on in life.
Safin Karim plays Armin, the Afghan translator. Karim migrated from East Africa to Canada in 1974. Karim says that film and storytelling are great ways to connect people's histories and cultures.
Storytelling is so important, first of all, because we get to understand different cultures different cultures, and then from that storytelling, then we start to find the commonalities, the shared humanity.
Mazda Jamalzada plays Katira, the daughter of Armin. Jamalzada is from Afghanistan and a voice for women's rights. She found personal similarities between the Indigenous culture and her own.
Relatable as well, because I've also, I've come from a country where there's been war for over 4 decades, and I see people constantly suffering in my own home country. So I can relate and feel that pain. Maybe not as much to that extent because they've been feeling it for so long. But I've constantly tried to know more about the culture. That's why I love being here.
Having the film come to the Yukon gave viewers a chance to see a strong Indigenous character in a leading role and to show the importance of cross-cultural relationships. The actors will take a break from touring the film to work on their own projects. More screenings for the film Red Snow will be scheduled for later dates. Chris McIntyre, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Some breaking news tonight. Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chiefs have given an eviction notice to Coastal GasLink that's trying to build a pipeline through their territory. We'll have that story for you tomorrow. And be sure to tune in to the first APTN in Focus of the Year tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern when we talk to the survivors of the devastation, the community that was burnt to the ground here in Manitoba. Also the effects of lateral violence in our communities and our families. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. Stay tuned now for Face to Face.